So this is a class that will focus very much on the legs and the feet. So we've done a lot of that in the other classes, but this will be an opportunity, if you have been coming to the other classes, to come into some really, really deep release into the lower body. If you can, you need, what do you need? Maybe a blanket, possibly a couple of cork bricks or something similar. None of these things are essential, but when we come into some dragon type poses, these would be good maybe to put your hands on. And then there'll be a pose towards the end of the class which you might want a bolster for, or something to lift yourself up. Maybe a big cushion would be fine. So I'll give you a couple of moments to get those things ready. We still haven't had our, I'm really sorry I keep sharing too much information, but basically we have not had hot water or heating since Monday, and we're not going to have these things until Monday at the very earliest, which is an interesting challenge in mid-November. Probably lucky that I'm doing this on Zoom. So if you'd like to have all your props handy and come to an easy seat to begin with, unless you really feel like you just don't want to sit and you want to lie down, in which case come to lying on your back, knees bent, soles of your feet on the floor. And if you've just joined, welcome. And we'll take a few moments to settle together, maybe closing your eyes. And allowing a few moments to drop into the body. We'll have a little bit of a weather check this Friday evening. How are you feeling right now? It's been quite a week. Still is quite a week. And we're not looking to push anything away, but rather welcome everything in just as it feels right now. Any sensations in the body, flow of your breath. Maybe there's some thoughts and emotions left over from the day that are just going to be here for a bit, and that's fine. They'll come and go. Don't fight them. And then if you are seated, can you drop your attention into the very base of your body? So the floor of your pelvis, the base of your spine, and your buttocks and legs and feet. And if you're on your back, feeling into the parts of the body that are in touch with the floor. And taking these few moments to really, really feel the ground beneath you. Almost as if you're growing into the ground. Almost as if you are part of the earth. for your emerging out of the earth. Fully grounded, fully connected. And this practice works very, very closely with this earth energy. Sense of connection and stability from which we can walk proud, from which we can experience space, joy, all of these other lovely things. And do take a moment, if it's relevant to you, to set yourself an intention, some kind of focus to come back to. And then from this centering, would you like to open your eyes and join me in a kneeling position, sitting on your heels? And we're going to come straight into our toes, straight into the plantar fascia, the soles of our feet. So we've been doing this in all the classes this week, and maybe some of you were hoping we wouldn't do it today, but we are going to. Some of you have already done it at 10 o'clock this morning. So maybe lift your knees up so you have access to your toes, so you can actually take a little bit of time to separate them with your fingers so that they really are separate and in touch with the floor, with whatever surface is beneath you. I've got a timer on 20 minutes, which would be interesting, wouldn't it? Try and find 2 minutes here. And we are going to try to stay for 2 minutes. Let's see how we get on. So the weight goes back onto your heels, and you will feel, it's best if you have bare feet. And this will probably be quite intense for some of you. If it's unbearable, you just lean forwards and take the weight off your heels. And take a few moments to settle in and feel right into the depth of that sensation. And come to your breath. And you can stay here with your hands on your thighs, or you might like to lift your arms up and open and clench your hands as fast or as slow as you like. So we just circulate and pulse energy and blood around the upper body as well. And we have another minute to go. And when sensations are really intense, of course, we want to run a million miles away. But what might it be like to stay? What might it be like to stay and pass through the other side with a little smile? Coming into the final 30 seconds, you might like to keep your hands pulsing or lower your hands down again. And this is so great for if you use your feet a lot in tight shoes, or if you cycle or run or walk. This is just such a great release for all the fibrous tissue and the base of your feet. One more breath in. And then exhale. Just lean onto your forwards and release your toes, and take a moment to simply, you could even lift your feet off the floor and simply notice sensation here. Ankles, toes, soles of your feet. Doesn't that not feel quite good now? And then you might want to patter them a little bit on the floor. And we'll rest back to our heels with our bottom, just for a brief child's pose, not a long hold. Might like to bring your hands underneath your forehead. This is also really nice for just opening out the front of the ankles for a moment and settling into the whole body. Breathe. And always, always, when it feels right for you, use your exhalations to just breathe out with an open mouth, just to let go of any residual tension towards the end or after the end of a pose. And then bringing your hands in towards your knees and straightening your arms to bring yourself up. And we are going to take our fingers behind us. And now we're really going to open out the front of the ankles by leaning back and lifting the knees. So some of you may lift your knees really high and maybe even come onto your forearms. Some of you may find your knees come a few millimeters off the floor, and it's all good. And we'll see if we can stay 2 minutes, but obviously, and I know this is intense, it is for me as well, come out whenever it's just too much. Please don't torture yourselves. This is not a class in sadomasochism, at least not explicitly. Breathe. We're halfway through. And notice what happens to your mind, to the rest of your body, as you come up to this edge of intensity. Breathe. It'll really set you up for the weekend. We're coming into the final 30 seconds. Creates heat, doesn't it? And taking a full breath in, and as you breathe out gently, hula, coming forwards. And just taking a moment, sitting here to feel the after effect of that. And we're going to come back into a toe stretch, but with a little bit of work, slightly different work for the arms. So we do focus on the lower body, but we don't ignore our upper body completely. So if you'd like to come onto your knees, curl your toes under, lift your knees up so you come back to spreading the toes. And then sit back on your heels, and we're going to come to eagle arms. So you're just going to breathe in and open your arms, that little bit of a squeeze in the shoulder blades. And then wrap the right arm over the left. And it may be that you wrap your arms like I have, or it may be that your right arm is free. And you use the crook of your left elbow to draw the arm across the body. And then you can move around a bit, drop the shoulders until you're ready to settle and come into the breath. Always relieving that pressure if it's just too much for your feet, but it should feel different the second time round. Breathe. Can you drop right into the experience of this pose, really, really deep and still. And then breathing in as you open your arms. And breathe out, wrap the left arm over the right. If you can, stay on the toes, or if you need to come out and come back in, of course, you're free to do that. I can't see you. Drop the shoulders. And breathe into the richness. How great is it to be alive and to feel the body in all its intensity. Put one more minute if you can. Your feet are going to love you for this. Can you soften in the face? Coming into your final 30 seconds. Do use your exhalations if that feels delicious to you. Just open your mouth and let it out. You can groan, you can sigh, you can sing. I won't inflict any of my versions of that on you. Not tonight, anyway. Take a full breath in. And then breathe out, release the arms and release the toes. And just lift your feet off the floor before you have any temptation to patter them down, and just feel. And then lower the toes, lower the feet. Maybe have a little bit of a patter if that feels right. And we're going to come just to 2 minutes in a child's pose. So make yourselves comfortable. You might like to take your knees apart, but you don't have to. You might take your arms right out in front of you. But make sure you have something to rest your forehead on the floor. So if your forehead doesn't come down, place your hands underneath or a cushion. And come to the simplicity of this child's pose and simply drop into the breath and into sensation. It's a lovely pose to really feel the support beneath us. Keep coming back to this, support, stability. Can you feel the force of gravity on your body? What might it be like to tune into each cell of the body, responding to the force of gravity? Can you release it in the roof of your mouth and all the tissues around your eyes and forehead? And taking a really full breath in, pausing at the top and then opening your mouth and sighing out the exhalation. Let's take 2 more like that. It's almost as if you're exhaling into the earth. Beautiful. And then from here, coming up to an all fours position with your knees underneath your hips. Sliding your right leg behind you, toes curled under, and just push the heel away just to stretch out here. Just a couple of breaths. And you can change your legs. So you feel each leg in connection with the foot, and all that love, cruel to be kind, you've just given your feet and ankles. And then curling under both sets of toes and lifting yourself into a downward dog. And take a few breaths here. It's absolutely fine to bend your knees, to move around a little bit, walk out your dog. Maybe at some point come to stillness. Feeling the back of the legs, lifting the sitting bones. One more breath in. And then breathe out, drop your knees. And release your toes. Let's bring a little bit of movement in before we come into some more stillness. So let's breathe in and tilt the pelvis forwards, the belly down, chest opens, throat opens. Begin to breathe out and follow that breath out with a cat pose. Navel up, lift the back of the ribs up, pause, and continue in your own time. But I would recommend making this quite juicy and slow. As if your breath is moving the body. You take 3 more rounds. Wonderful. And from here, taking your hands out in front of you and rolling down onto your belly for a nice long hold in either Sphinx or Seal. Let's all start in Sphinx. So I think you've all been coming to these classes lots, but I'll talk you through anyway. You start off with your elbows underneath the shoulders. Just check that the arm's vertical here. And check how that feels in the lower back. Is that comfortable or is there any pinching? And if there is any pinching, take your elbows away and come down a notch. Otherwise, you stay here and then I'll give you the option in a couple of minutes of coming up higher if you want to. And settle into the breath. I'm not giving you any directed breathing today, just simple breath. You might feel the front of your pelvis dropping. You might feel those very bottom vertebrae, the lumbar spine, compressing. And if you just don't feel very much at all, see what it feels like to bend up your lower legs. And for some people that'll be delicious and some people will be like, I really don't want to do that. So check in for yourself. Check in with your jaw, your eyes. And feel the whole body breathing. And notice as you lie here in this apparently simple posture, if your whole body is soft, or if you're gripping in anywhere, might be in your brain. It's a great pose in which to observe the thoughts just passing by. No story, no grabbing, no grasping. You might find that Sphinx is just right for you, or you might like to come up into Seal, where you take your hands out to the side, maybe fingers point out. Don't do anything that introduces any twinging in the lower back, please. Only take your head back if that's right for you. And keep it simple tonight. Keep the breath simple. We have this lovely combination in all yoga, but maybe more in Yin, where we are simultaneously soft, still, but on high alert, because we're observing, we're witnessing everything that arises. We become super sensitive. That is what's beautiful about the practice, I think. It's like layer upon layer of existence is revealed just through stopping and observing. There's nothing else to do. Receiving sensation, receiving sound. All of our senses open and alert to receive everything that comes. We're in the final minute of the pose. Final 30 seconds if you'd like to use your breath. And taking a full breath in right into the heart space. Then as you breathe out, whether you're in Sphinx or Seal, lowering yourself all the way down and take your hands under the forehead. Allow your heels to flop out to the side. Maybe even take your feet a little bit wider apart. And breathe into the belly. Inflate the belly and feel the space spreading into your lower back. And then when you're ready, gently, gently bring your hands around to your ribs and push yourself slowly to all fours, and then back into a very brief child's pose. We won't stay for long. You can direct your breath into the back of the body here. Okay, so we're going to come into a little bit of a dragon sequence, and this is where you might want to use your bricks or the equivalent. Bear in mind that whenever we do a dragon and we have one foot forwards, the back knee might feel like there's quite a lot of pressure with the floor, so you might want to place, either double up your mat or place a blanket or cushion underneath the knee. So we'll start with our right foot in between the feet, you know what I mean, in between the hands. And your knee really needs to be above the ankle if possible. If it's shooting a bit further forwards, that's okay, but you don't want it to be behind the ankle. And we're going to start with a dragon flying low, which means that your hands or on either side of the foot. And this could be on bricks, could be on the floor. Take a moment, you might like to curl under your back toes and slide the left knee further back, because we're looking to bring opening into here, into the front of the left hip and the quad. And we're going to stay for 3 minutes in this dragon flying low. And it can take a while to really drop into this pose and to notice all the areas in the body where there's tightness. A little bit of a marinade for the hips. Good old Esther Eckhart and her marinading. I'm really hungry actually, so I can just imagine a marinade I'd like to. Stop it, Rebecca, stop it. You don't need to listen to my recipes. And come to your breath. And ask yourself, now that you're a minute into the pose, where you're tight. And it might not be in the lower body. It might be that you're holding something in the upper body. And if you are here tonight and you've never practiced yin, and I think there might be a couple of you tonight, it's the time we spend in the postures that works really deeply into our connective tissue. It stresses the connective tissue, the fascia. It hydrates the fascia. And this is a web of white tissue which interpenetrates the whole body, all the muscles, all the bones. And it ends up giving us what can feel like a really deep massage. And of course, as with all yoga, it's not just the physical, there's a whole emotional memory interlaced through all of this tissue. So all kinds of release can happen. Just let it be. Coming into the final minute, and I know this pose can be quite intense for many people. Softening and dropping in. Last 30 seconds, use the breath. And take a full breath in and a long breath out. And then from here, we'll very briefly draw back into Ardha Hanumanasana, so half monkey. You just draw the right hip back and you straighten the right leg, pull your toes towards you. Maybe dropping the torso over the leg, and you'll feel it in the hamstrings. Just for about half a minute, we'll stay here. Slide the foot forwards a bit to keep a vertical thigh here. So these grounding practices are simultaneously very enlivening. It's like we re-find our roots and then we flourish up. Okay, releasing forwards. And we come into the second of our dragons, which is now a dragon flying high. So it may be that this dragon flying low was really intense for you and you need to come back to that and even back out of it a little bit. Or it may be you're able to bring your hands up onto your knees, and this just gives a little bit more pressure, a little bit of a push. And I'm going to leave us in silence, but I want to give a couple of instructions here so that you don't overhang out in the hips. There's a little bit of engagement of your lower abdomen, not clenching, but just aware that you're supporting yourself a little bit from your core. Maybe a little bit of a drag from the front heel to the back knee. A little bit of scissoring in. Then I'll leave you to experience the pose fully. Come to your breath. And never ever push yourself beyond an edge where you begin to feel acute pain. Discomfort you will feel, probably. But acute pain means you need to come out of the pose. And can you melt a little bit here? Breathe. Can you stay very, very present with sensation as it arises for you? And it will be emotional maybe for some people. And that's not a bad thing, is it? Just let it come up. Got one more minute here. Stay with it. If you can, breathe right into the center of it. Your legs and your hips are going to love you. Last 30 seconds, use the breath. One more full breath in. And then drop your hands down and very briefly just release back into that half monkey just for a moment, just to release out of the pose because we've got one more dragon. I know some of you are going to hate me, but your bodies are going to thank you. All the layers of your being are going to thank you for this practice, I think. I hope. I can't promise anything. So the final layer, if you like, of these dragons is you have a choice. You're going to bring both hands inside the front foot. Let me show you the choice before you come into it. Either, and you might find that this is a 3-minute pose, you might find that after a minute you want to move into the second variation. So either you come down low into gecko, and that could mean taking your arms onto a block, or it could mean that you're still up high. And you might find that you need to draw that back knee back a little bit more. You might have found more opening now. So this is gecko, that's one pose. The other option is a pose that we came to in the Hatha Flow classes this week, and that's to come into full splits or a variation of it, splits. And obviously not for everybody. I'm going to do gecko today. I'm only saying that for anyone who wants to, and it doesn't mean you have to come into the full pose at all. If you have any doubts, come to the gecko version like me. And we stay for 3. And allow yourself to really soften and drop into this pose. So I can feel quite a lot of tension around the back of my ribs, for example, not in the hips at all. So you see where you feel it and see if you can invite softness. Never ever tolerating acute pain, please. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Sometimes when we work deep into the hips like this, into the lower body, all sorts of memories just bubble up from nowhere. That'd be quite normal. Just let that happen. Breathe. And see how soft you can become in all your facial tissues. Yin yoga is a meditation in postures, keeping it very simple. I've got 1 more minute here. Stay very, very close as you come towards your final 30 seconds, maybe using the breath. Very, very rich in sensations in these postures. And then taking a full breath in and a long breath out. And if you're down low, coming up onto your hands. If you're in splits, just easing your front leg in any way that works for you. We just come into that half monkey again, where you draw your toes towards you, straight leg. Just take a moment to release into that leg and hip. And then from here we'll take a downward dog, which should feel quite delicious after all of that, and then we'll come to the other side. Have a little stretch out, a little breathe, a little play even. Whatever you feel you need right now, and you'll feel very different, I'm sure, on the right side of the body compared to the left. One more full breath in, and then drop your knees and bring your left foot forwards for dragon flying low. And remember, you might want to cushion your back knee, you might want bricks on either side of the foot, you might want to drag that back knee a little bit further back. And we'll settle in for our 3 minutes. And notice the difference between the two sides. And breathe and observe and feel. You feel alert through the whole body, through the whole of your skin, all of your senses receptive. You really feel the earth beneath you, that stability holding you. Breathe. See if you can drop another layer, soften a little bit more into the pose. Where are you holding on? We're coming into your final minute in this little dragon flying low. Stay with it if you can. Breathe right into it. And being curious about where you really feel the pose. Do you feel it more on the right thigh and hip, front of the hip? More on the left? Where is it happening for you? Last 20 seconds, use your breath. Take a full breath in and a long breath out. Just come back for half a minute in our Ardha Hanumanasana. Just slide the left foot forwards so that you have this vertical right thigh. Draw your left toes towards you. And come down as far as works for you with the torso over that leg and feel the back of the left leg. And then gently coming forwards again for our dragon flying high. If you're finding this all too intense, stay low. Otherwise, bringing your hands onto the left knee. Some people like the forearms. And remember that as the pressure kind of pushes you further forwards, that you still need that integrity in your lower abdomen. You still need to be aware of the front heel and the back knee just coming in towards each other a little. So you're not just completely hanging out in the hips. Then see if you can release into the pose. And breathe. Stay with it. Such an earthy, rooting practice. If you're interested in the more esoteric side of yoga and the energy body, we're working with the Muladhara chakra, the earth root chakra at the base of the spine, but we're also transitioning a little bit in poses like this up into the Svadhisthana, the center of our creativity, our sensuality. Just more located towards the back of the pelvis. Kind of lower belly area, back of the pelvis and towards the spine. Coming into the final minute. So we're mixing earth and water. Svadhisthana corresponds with the water element. And if none of that is relevant or interests you, just drop it. It doesn't matter. We just feel it anyway, physically. Last 30 seconds here. You can always back off a bit if something feels too intense. I'm backing out of this just a few centimeters now. And then taking a full breath in, a long breath out, and releasing your hands down and just very briefly straightening out that left leg. So you come into your half monkey. And then we come into our final pose in this sequence, which is either gecko, so either bringing your forearms down on the floor, on a block, or maybe keeping your arms straight both inside the left foot. Or if it's right for you, coming into a version of full Hanumanasana, full splits. But don't hurt yourselves, please. Only do that if that is something that's in your practice. It's not really time to push ourselves straight into that now. And then we come to 3-minute pose here, either gecko or Hanumanasana. It's always fine to spend the first minute finding your edge, dropping into where there's availability for you, and then settle into the stillness. It's the stillness in this practice which makes it so profound, I think. Breathe. Stay with it. You've got another 1.5 minutes. Final minute. Stay very, very close. I know it's hard. As long as there's no real pain, this is really, really beneficial for all of these tissues around the hips and the legs. It's great for the circulation, the hydration. Final 30 seconds if you want to use your breath. Gradually come out of the pose your way. Very slowly, finding your half monkey just for a few breaths before we come back to a downward dog. Okay, and then finding your way into a downward dog for a few breaths and making it really feel good for you. It's absolutely fine to move around. Use this as a real release from that whole dragon sequence. And dragon sequence in yin is known to be one of the most intense sequences. So if this is your first ever yin class, you've jumped right into the deep end. Take a full breath in here. And then dropping your knees, come to simply sitting in what's known as seiza in yin, just sitting on your heels, hands on your thighs. And if that's just not comfortable for you, you can place something on your lower legs to sit on to take the pressure off the knees. Maybe close your eyes and simply come into the breath. Receptive to all sensations, sounds, taste, everything. Simply observing how you feel, just a few more moments. Okay, and then opening your eyes if they were closed. And for the next pose, you may want to have your bolster or your cushion handy. We're going to come into a saddle pose, which is a pose like this basically. So we're really opening the front of the thighs and the hips. And the dragon sequence prepared for this, but this is now quite a lovely back bend as well. So I'll just demonstrate. So most of you will know which version of this you want to come into. I'm just going to demonstrate a version with props, which is more of a restorative pose. It takes the pressure off. So you'd have your cushion or your bolster and you'd elevate it with something at the end like a brick or a book. And then you might even take a blanket over the top for your head. And then you're going to come and sit in between your heels. And if your sitting bones don't come to the floor, please place something underneath. And let's come into this slowly. You need to be right up against the bolster, and you can follow these same instructions even if you're not using a bolster. And I really like to use my hands to draw the tissues and flesh up over my knees. Sometimes it's nice to use your fingers to take the outer edges of your feet and press them a little bit around towards the floor. And then you come back. And if you're on a cushion or a bolster, this shouldn't be too much pressure on the legs. It might be just right. And in fact, I'm going to stay in a restorative pose tonight like this. But if you would want to come into the full pose, you'd come to lying flat on your back without any props. And obviously that's much more compression for the lumbar spine in the lower spine. So don't do it if it hurts your lower back. And it's obviously much stronger opening for the front body. And this is quite a long hold, probably hold it up to about 5 minutes. So allow yourselves to settle. Relaxing in between the shoulder blades, softening in the face. And this compression in the lower spine is, in terms of traditional Chinese medicine, which is where Yin receives a lot of its wisdom from, a lot of its inspiration. This area of the body, the lumbar spine, is where there's a lot of qi or energy condensed. And so we compress it even more, and then when we come out of a pose like this, we allow it to reverberate around the rest of the body. It's like a source, a pool of energy that we're deepening into. Come to your breath. And notice where you feel this pose. Notice the quality of your breath. See if you can soften where you find that you're holding on. Might be across the forehead. Might be inside the mouth. Breathe. Maybe you become aware now of a real softening and opening across the heart space, across the chest, front and back. Can you give yourself up to that opening of the heart? Just curious as to what you find there. Breathe. There should be absolutely no pain in the knees at all. If you are experiencing pain in the knees, I'd rather you came out and took the Sphinx pose, which I should have mentioned at the beginning. You're lying on your belly with your arms out in front of you. Breathe. We're coming into the final minute of the pose. Final 30 seconds. And taking a full breath in and a long breath out. And really take care when you come out of this pose. You need to have strong abdomen. You might want to hold on to the outer edges of your mat or press into your arms as you come up very slowly. Very, very slowly. Take a few moments here in Sesa again, just kneeling. Maybe eyes closed to feel the rebound, feel the residue of 5 minutes in saddle pose. Rebound is often the most interesting part of the whole practice. And then from here, we're going to come into very simple forward fold, very simple caterpillar pose. So you'd like to bring your legs out in front of you. And you might find after what we've just been doing, you want to give your knees and your legs a little bit of a rub, a little bit of a shake even. And then as it's a forward fold, you might want to just elevate your hips a little. You might want to sit on a block or a blanket. And your legs are out in front of you. And if you find it really difficult to tilt forwards from the pelvis and you tend to slouch, bend up your knees. In fact, even take something under your knees if you want a restorative version. This might be really nice. You could lift your knees up onto a bolster. I feel like really restorative tonight, so I'm going to do that. Find your sitting bones. You could just draw the flesh away a little bit here. And then take a breath in to find length in the spine, and then all you're going to do is fall forwards over your legs. You just let your feet relax, you let them hang out. You might want to take a brick under your head, whatever feels right for you. And we'll stay for 5. I don't want that after all. And so we've opened out the back of the legs, so you should feel that you have quite a lot of access into the back of your legs, but now we're folding forwards. So can you really allow this flexion in the spine, allow your shoulders to become heavy. Notice sensation in the back body now. And I really love in forward folds to extend the exhalation a little bit, so take longer exhalations. Feel them dissolving away. It's fine to wriggle around a little bit before you find where you're able to stay still and calm. And breathe. And it'd be really normal to encounter little areas in the body, maybe the back of your ribs around the shoulder blades, where you still feel a little tight. And if that's the case, just observe, and then just simply by observing and maybe even directing your breath to those parts of the body, maybe you encounter a softening, you experience a softening. Breathe. We've got a couple more minutes here, and you may find with forward fold that you drop a little bit deeper with time, millimeter by millimeter. Can you really surrender here? Surrender to the force of gravity. Let it have you as you drop a little deeper. Notice how the whole body responds. Stay very, very close. Coming to your final 30 seconds here. And taking a full breath in and a long breath out. We're going to come up super slow. Please keep your chin into your chest. A little bit of engagement in the abdomen as you come up bone by bone, reassembling your spine. Keep your chin in and then take the tips of your forefinger and middle finger of either hand and place them just in between your eyebrows. And use the fingers to lift your head up to align with the spine. Maybe with your eyes closed, take a moment here to feel the residue, to feel the rebound. And you might like to take your hands behind you just for a moment. Lift the chest, little counter pose, a little bit of a squeeze in between the shoulder blades. Lovely. And we're going to take another forward fold, but this time we're going to take our legs wide apart. So it's dragonfly. Again, you might want to be sitting up on something. If you're still quite tight in the hamstrings or in the hips, you could take bricks or something to elevate the knees. Just taking your legs as far apart as they'll go. And maybe taking a bolster or a brick for your head, whatever feels right. So we're enlivening the inside of the legs, but we're also coming into a forward fold. So take a breath in and find that gentle lift up and out of the pelvis, and then come forwards. And you just relax the feet. And find where you're able to stay relatively comfortably for a few minutes. And breathe. Any niggle in the lower back at all, you shouldn't bend your knees up, please. Don't tolerate any pain in the lower back. Maybe you're still lengthening your exhalations, really allowing them to dissolve, following them right through before the breath in comes back again. Breathe. Stay close, stay very, very intimate with yourself. Breathe. And observe how the body drops a little with time. Observe where you feel the pose in the body. So what happens to your mind when you come to stillness? Where can you let go now and drop a little deeper as we come to the end of this pose? Let's just stay another minute. Taking a few final deep breaths. And again, we come up super slow, bone by bone. A little bit of engagement in the abdominal muscles. And feel the residue, feel the after effect, the rebound. And then use your fingers behind your knees to draw your feet maybe about hip distance apart as you take your hands behind you. Maybe actually you could take your feet a little bit wider apart, maybe mat distance apart, and we'll just take a few windshield wiper movements just to rinse through the hips, the legs, the pelvis. And we just have one more pose before we relax. We'll end with a little twist. So do come onto your backs and bend your knees. And shift your bottom, your hips over to the right. And then bring your knees in towards you and drop them to the left. So that's one option. If you want to intensify the twist, you could cross your left leg over the right, maybe even wrap the foot behind. And then come down. You can use that left foot to shunt your hips a bit further over to the right to give you a bit of space here. And then see if you can settle out in the shoulder blades, and if it's available to you, look over to the right. So crossing the legs is much more intense, and it might not be for you. The other thing you can do, if you're not reaching the floor, is settle your knees into a brick, so you're able to let go. We don't want any strain. And allow yourself to drop into this twist, 3 minutes on each side. Once you've wriggled around a bit to find where you're able to stay, then see if you can drop into some stillness and just observe the body respond. And breathe. You may experience in this pose that your legs and your pelvis, all the bones and the tissues, can become really heavy. Really heavy, really dropping. Really soft in the inner thighs and the belly. There's nothing to hold on to here. And how soft are you in the face? Are you gripping or can you soften? Breathe. And coming to the final 30 seconds of the twist on this side. Breathe, maybe open your mouth and sigh out any residual tension. These twists squeeze out of us. Taking a full breath in and a long breath out. And then bring your head back to neutral first. If your legs are tangled up, untangle them. Lift the right knee, take the foot to the floor. Left knee, take the foot to the floor. And just take a moment in a neutral, extended pose here, just to feel the whole body before we take the twist to the other side. Bring your knees in towards you. And if you're just going to bring the legs over, just bring your feet over first and shift your bottom to the left. Or wrap the left leg over the right. I think I might have said that wrongly on the other side anyway. Shift your bottom over to the left and then come over to the right. You can prop your knee up with a brick. Relax into your shoulder blades and look over to the left. I'm sorry if I said left instead of right on the other side. And allow yourself to soften here completely. And breathe. Soft but alert to sensation and the sense of the space around you, the air on your skin. Breathe. Where are you holding on? Just one more minute here. And taking a full breath in and a long breath out. Bring your head back to neutral first. Untangle your legs if they're tangled. Lift the left knee and plant your foot down, and then lift the right knee. Take a moment here. All we've got left to do is slide the feet away. Take your feet apart and allow them to fall out. Make sure you're warm enough. Take your hands wherever feels right for you. And I'm going to leave you to simply bathe in the afterglow of that yin practice. Breathing naturally. Allowing yourself to open to all sensation. With that amazing feeling of dropping into the earth. Let it have you. Let gravity do its work. And you are welcome to stay here, resting and bathing in sensation for as long as you like. Or you might like to be guided out, and I will give you the option of saying hi at the end of the class, appearing on the video if you want. No pressure at all. You might want to drift into your own Friday evening. I'm going to shortly. If you are ready to come out, beginning to take a few deeper breaths. Maybe feel the rise and fall of your abdomen with the breath. Choosing any little movements. Don't take anything too strong. You don't want to wake up too much, just enough to be able to function. So just taking any little movements that you like to take, maybe rolling over to one side until you're ready to join me in a seated position. Maybe keep your eyes closed if that works for you. Hands together in Anjali Mudra in front of the heart space. Allowing yourself a final few moments to simply notice how you feel. If there's anything you want to take from this practice, anything that struck you, anything that interested you. Feeling the ground beneath you, always there to hold you, whatever the circumstances. And then taking a full breath in towards the heart space. And as you breathe out, bowing your head chin to your chest. And gently lifting your head on the inhale and opening your eyes. Thank you so much for joining me.